Hey, welcome to the Amputate to Elevate Success podcast, the show where transformation takes center stage. I'm John Register, Paralympic silver medalist, U.S. Army veteran, and creator of the Amputate to Elevate Success model. This podcast is for trailblazing leaders, high-stakes decision makers, and ambitious change makers who know that in order to elevate, we sometimes have to amputate. Amputate old mindsets, limiting beliefs, and outdated systems. Why do I do this? Because I've lived it. I lost a leg, but found my mission. And now I help leaders like yourself shift from setback to success, from fear to freedom. We've had some phenomenal guests already on the show. Don Yeager, 12-time New York Times best-selling author. Gerardo Tejeda Dande, Senior VP of Amex Global Business Travel. Mara Tingelstall, the first and only Black woman to pilot the U-2 spy plane, 70,000 feet, baby. And today, we're flying high with none other than Samantha Kris, an executive energy igniter and purpose-driven powerhouse. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you like this podcast, all right? Now let's get into it. Samantha is a best-selling author, award-winning speaker, and TEDx phenom, known for her fearless approach to flipping failure into fuel. She's the creator of the Real Goal methodology, which redefines how we pursue success, making goals relevant, empowering, actionable, and lucrative. As host of The Catalyst with Samantha Kris, she curates courageous conversations that cut through confusion and ignite clarity. She's the author of Bossing Up, a bold believer in building up others from boardrooms to break rooms. Samantha sparks strategic self-leadership and inspires others to step up, speak out, and soar. Ready? Let's go. Samantha Kris, oh my gosh, welcome to the Amputate to Elevate Success podcast. I can't believe, ladies and gentlemen, we have the one and only Samantha Kris is on. Thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you for having me, John. I've been so excited to do this.
Yeah, I've been enjoying getting to know you ever since we're out at Real Leaders in California. So I just really appreciate you. So Samantha, what's one thing that you had to amputate in order to elevate your success?
I have been thinking about this since I met you, John. This talk of yours was so powerful, and it left such a lasting impression on me in understanding really what can I let go of. I think I've gone through this exercise a lot, and it took hearing you and your story to realize, although I've identified certain things to let go of, I've not truly let them go. And so I think I did half the work. And so since I've met you, it's really been seeking to understand not only what can I drop, but what will be most impactful to help propel me forward. And what has rung true for me is the fear of success. And I think we talk about the fear of failure quite a bit as something that holds us back. But the fear of success is a sneaky one. And recognizing that I actually have a lot of confidence and belief in my own ability, but the fear that comes with stepping into that and the decisions that will be required and the compromises that will need to be made once that call, once I flip the switch.
What do you think is holding you from flipping that switch?
How long is this chat going to be? I feel like this is going to be a lifetime of exploration to discover or to discuss. But right now, anyway, I think there's this, I worry a lot about others. And I think I have created narratives that have kept me stuck in an energy that feels like if I fully lean into who I can be, it comes to the detriment or at the detriment of them. And I have not been entertaining the idea of what happens if I lean into everything I know I can be. How can that elevate everyone? And so it's been a very conscious effort and shift in energy in saying, in thinking and truly believing that stepping into this for me can in fact be the rising tide that lifts all boats. And that's just been something I haven't trusted fully until recently.
You know, one of the things that I've been exploring, it's interesting that you say this, is kind of a red thread through my entire journey. And one of the things that comes back is, for me, we don't just bounce back, we build better, right?
Mm.
We build back better, and with a blueprint. So there's a place and a way to process it. And instead of going broad and wide, trying to find out what everybody else has and concern there, I found that focusing in on the less than 1%
Mm.
of whatever gifting that I think I have, it really not only it releases me, but also elevates other people along the way, and to like tenths and hundreds of degrees, because I'm solely focused on that one thing. If there's like a red thread for you, a one thing for you, what do you think that is? What do you think it is your gifting? I'll share with you what I think it is later, but what do you think your gifting is that you help other people with?
Well, I love this question. This is language I use a lot, actually, is this idea of gifting. It's such an empowering word. And I think, in my own experience where I've needed to trust in myself more, reframing it as a gift allows me to trust and feel excited as opposed to feel that fear. So I really appreciate the way that this is worded. I think in this era, and if you had asked me this 2 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have given you different answers. But right now, this gift that I feel so passionate about, not only in pouring my energy into, but in my unique ability to help people with, is this understanding that storytelling and strategy are mutually exclusive. And so I seek to deconstruct that idea, specifically as a speaker coach, but also, we are speaking about our lived experiences. And so when we're able to weave storytelling into strategy and bring a strategic approach to storytelling, I really think we can amplify our impact. And at least for the people that I work with, that is mega important. And it's been a huge reminder for myself, because it's this impact that I have had some resistance to leaning into, because there's been some fear. And so I have to take a little bit of a dose of my own medicine with this, in not only telling my story, but reliving it and revisiting the parts that perhaps I have ignored or have been unwilling to share, because they will unearth parts of me that perhaps I've not yet faced.
Sure. Because we can lead from our, we can't, I believe we can't lead from our wounds. We have to lead from our scars. You've heard me say that a few times. What I see in you, and when I've seen you either coach or in real time, or, to a group, or just interact with people, is an ability to release them, an ability to release them and really help nurture them up to a level to where they probably didn't think they could achieve. And whether or not that was innate with inside of you, I think what happens is when people gravitate, they're around you, they just see that themselves, and they can elevate in a higher state of their own existence. And I think that's what comes out from the coaching that you are able to do. So that's one element, I think, of how you show up in other people's lives to help them elevate in that space. But I think it's a universal thing for you. I don't think it's just the coaching thing.
Right.
It's
Appreciate
just
that.
beyond it. Have you? Yeah, go. Absolutely.
Can I share a quick story?
Yeah.
Because this is something, and I so appreciate you recognizing that and sharing that, because it validates some of the things that have been surfacing over the last I would say 1 to 3 years. And one of the moments that has been most impactful for me was doing a private equine training, I think it's called. So I had leaders in the form of horses. And I show up to this ranch, and you don't choose your horses choose you. And based on kind of the frequency that they're able to dial into your energy, and you've got kind of 2 horses, the one that gravitates most towards you and the one that gravitates the least towards you, and they both have something to teach you that day. And depending on the day and the energy that you show up with, you will have different horses towards you as your mentors, as your leaders. And one of them, John, he wanted nothing to do with me. And I was hell-bent on having this horse be friends with me by the end of the day. And I tried every trick in the book, and he just wasn't having it. And I was devastated. So I asked the facilitator, well, what's going on? he came up to see me at the beginning, and then it seems like he just entirely changed his mind. And her role in this, right, is how does that make you feel, and what do you think is happening here? Because the way in which I'm interacting with nature and with animals is very reflective of how I interact with people. She said, it really seems that you want to get his attention. Why do you think that is? I'm like, well, because he's ignoring me and I can't have that. And I want to understand why. So we go through a series of me walking amongst the horses and trying to understand what I think they're picking up from me, and then talking about that with the facilitator and working through some of what I accept as truth, which in fact I discover is far from. So what happens is this horse kind of makes eye contact with me after a few sessions with him, and he leads me into the stable, and then he turns his back and faces the corner, and he just puts his head down, and I'm heartbroken. I felt so betrayed. He brought me in here. I thought we finally made some progress. And I start telling her, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I'm someone who's generally pretty likable. And I'm having a really hard time with this. And I later discover that this is the greatest act of trust that this horse could have displayed, because he is in fact the alpha. He's the leader of the pack. And for him to turn his back and to put his head in the corner, which meant that he was resting, in fact indicated that he trusted me enough to watch the rest of the horses. And it was such a profound moment where I realized how many rooms have I walked into where I have made assumptions of how people are engaging with me and my energy and my impact. And to come full circle with your comment, what I really appreciate is that this sense of security and creating that environment for people to be willing to be seen and to trust the energy that I'm bringing has become, I wish I could re-give my answer. That is the gift that is a newly discovered one, I think, that has been so meaningful for me to better understand.
You can give your answer at any time. This is an evolving show. We're not fine. We're not stuck. Thank goodness in the one thing. The one aspect of who we are. That's powerful, that another person is able to come in there and recognize what's going on with the horse while you're thinking something totally different.
Right.
You're thinking that this horse has turned its back on you, and you brought you into the stable, and now it's not interacting and really is trusting you with everybody else.
Yeah.
When leaders are facing high stakes transitions and they're going through moments, whether either themselves personally or with their teams, how do we use stories like this, or you extract stories to help them extract stories like this to help them see their value, their worth, and what their gifting is to the organization?
That's something I think most leaders that I work with struggle to identify is, A, I don't have a story to tell. B, I don't know what story to tell, or I know what story I want to share, but I don't know how to make it impactful. And I think a large part of it comes down to confidence. And I don't mean that in the traditional sense of speaking where we've got breathing techniques or a power pose or stage presence confidence, but more so in the value that they are uniquely positioned to impart on their audience. And I think some of that work starts with understanding our core values, in knowing the impact we want to have in the world at large, and then narrowing our scope to the impact that we can make in the time slot we're given, whether that's a 60-minute all hands meeting, 20-minute keynote speech, or a podcast such as this. Understanding that we are being, talk about gifts, our attention and our time is, I think, the greatest gift people can give us, and it is our non-renewable resource. Mm-hmm. And the time that they're spending listening to you or listening to me, I'll speak for myself, is not something that I take lightly. So when I work with leaders and helping them understand this story, it's about first and foremost tapping into a level of confidence that you've got a story to share. And some of these stories are what are seemingly insignificant moments of our days, but we don't really take the time to reflect on the impact that know that they've had on us, but how we can then transfer that value, that impact to others. I think that's part of the secret sauce that I bring, is helping people recognize those pivotal moments where they had either, a light bulb go on in their mind, or there was a fork in the road or a decision that they had to make, which ultimately formed or contributed to who they are today. And then recognizing, how do we help people who may never walk your path to benefit from the insight that you gained in this moment? And it comes with, this is where I say, well, I really like to start with confidence, is we don't necessarily take stock of how these moments have really shaped us, how our core values were in fact the driver of those decisions or choices, and how when we are very intentional about communicating that value through stories, we can really inspire people to think, act, or feel differently.
So then what's your story? How did you get into this work? How did you come up with your real goal methodology trademark?
Oh gosh, you're asking the big questions. How did I get into this? So there are so many kind of ingredients when I look at the recipe that is my life that went into this. There was no one path. If you had asked me 10 years ago if I thought that I would be where I am today, the answer would be no. And if you ask me where I'll be 10 years from now, I'm not sure I have an answer for that either. But I mean, I'll kind of start back from where I think my story started to take shape. I studied criminology. So I was an addictions counselor at the age of 19. I was working with men and women, many of whom were court mandated and who were in a live-in treatment facility as part of their release. And they were battling addictions older than I was at the time. I didn't have the life experience really to separate work from home, and I didn't have the work experience to really fully keep up. But what I had were my very human stories, my very human experiences that allowed me to relate to them as people, albeit a much younger person. And I think that was probably, at least in a professional setting, where I got a taste for, no matter the walks of life, no matter the years of experience, no matter how different we are as people, stories can really unite us, and they can empower us, again, to think, act, or feel differently. And in that environment, I had a responsibility, to help them on their journey of sobriety. And as a junior counselor, yes, I had some book smarts, but I really had an ability to connect with people. And when I realized that that wasn't a field that I would be able to stay in long term, which was kind of a devastating realization, because I put all my eggs in that basket, but I burnt out quite quickly, and I sought out to do something different. And I fell into the world of wedding planning, which on the surface made no sense. But I was with a girlfriend, we were driving, and I said, you know what, I just need to do something that feels really different. If not this, I don't know what, because I had put so much of my identity in this role. And she said, I really think that you would be good at event coordination. You really love people and you're very organized. Well, why not check it out? So I emailed every event planner in Montreal, and I offered to intern for free for the summer. And I said, I just want to see if this is for me. I ended up loving it. I did it for 4 years, which ultimately opened the door to a corporate events position. And I did a lot of my growing up in corporate and then working with leaders at the executive level. But what I came to understand over the years, whether it was working as an addictions counselor or working as a wedding planner or working in marketing in corporate, was I got to be part of people's journeys in very significant moments of their lives and help them shape their story of sobriety, their story of love, their story of a product or service. And that kind of became what I recognize as something I want to contribute, to people, to organizations, is help them recognize what's uniquely yours and how do we share that with the world? Like you said, what is that gift that we can extend to your audience?
That's a great through line. That's awesome. And it's so, after we go through the process, we can see it, right? As we're in it, we don't know where this thread's going to take us.
Right.
And so in 10 years from now, you'll see where the thread has taken you. because you continue to still walk on the path. You're not putting the thread down. You don't stop. You
Right.
continue to move, and you continue to help other individuals. And I think it is around identity and reinvention for other folks. So as you're thinking about that, you do a TED Talk, on the topic and setting goals that matter. You emphasize aligning goals with personal values. So how did you kind of redefine your goals, if that's the way you share it? And how did that lead to reinvention in your own professional identity? And then third, how are you implementing that into others?
So the goal setting methodology has evolved since I gave the TED Talk. It still works well as a goal setting methodology or goal setting framework. I use those same pillars as the kind of internal compass for reinvention. So in the earliest iteration of the Real Goal Method, it's an acronym that stands for resonant, empowering, actionable, and lucrative. And the first pillar, resonant, is that core values piece. Whether we're setting a goal or we're setting a vision for our future self, let's anchor that first and foremost into what truly matters for us. And what I've seen with a lot of the people that I work with, either from a goal setting perspective, a reinvention perspective, or even my speakers, is that they're operating on an outdated value system. So there's a little bit of internal friction when our values are outdated. And I think a little bit, for our smartphone users or Apple users, as an iOS update, your phone's still going to work if it's on an outdated system, but it's going to start to get a little glitchy, and all of a sudden you're going to get a notification that says, hey, there's some updates that you might benefit from. And then even in the update, we start to notice, oh, there are some bugs that they didn't quite catch, and there's this little bit of a growth period. Mm-hmm. But I feel the same thing happens when we start to outgrow our values. And I think that a lot of our values are with us for a long time, but then there are things like a death of a family member, loss of a job, birth of a child, big significant life events that reshape what's truly most important to us. And we have to make time to take stock of what those are. So, I think I lost you, John.
No, you weren't still here.
Oh, okay. I only seen
it. It's all you.
Got it. So first and foremost, anchoring that in our core values. Again, in the earliest iteration, E was for empowering. I've since evolved my thinking on this because when I gave the TED Talk, empowering was, I thought, or was of the belief that the goals that will drive you into action or propel you into action the best are the ones that make you feel empowered, because disempowering thoughts and beliefs will limit you from success. I've come to, I think, update my thinking as my own values have updated. And I've realized both in my life, but also in the lives of my clients, that oftentimes it is the most disempowering thoughts that propel us into action, because the thought of staying stuck in that feeling, in that negative loop, in that vicious cycle is enough to flip the switch, is enough to do something about it. So I no longer believe that they need to be empowering to move us into action. And so E now represents evokes emotion. So R is for resonant, E is for evokes emotion. If it makes you feel something, even if that something is despair, is anger, is it outrage, it can still be harnessed for good. A, actionable. How do we not just break it down into bite-sized chunks and make it actionable, but what inspires action? Because I'm of the belief, and as you saw, my career has taken a few windy roads, is recognizing what is the next best step, the single next best step, because I trust that when you take that next most aligned step with your core values, the road will rise to meet you no matter what. Mm-hmm. And lucrative is about understanding what you stand to gain. And this is true, like I said, both for goal setting and for reinvention. And I use this framework as well when working with my speakers to make sure that the stories we're sharing are rooted in values, they evoke emotion, they are actionable, they're tangible, we're giving them something to kind of sink their teeth into. And they stand to gain something by integrating this knowledge and this story, the lessons from the story, into their own lives. So I do this repeatedly. I would say I've set up kind of a quarterly cycle for myself to just keep myself on track. And then annually, instead of New Year's resolutions, what I'll do is revisit my core values and look at what I want to achieve for the year ahead, who I want to be, and are they in alignment?
Mm-hmm. I like the your growth from empowering to evoking emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I was writing that down because I think that's it's I don't want to call it really a trigger, but it's a self-awareness that we can have with ourself on what's coming up for us that is either not aligning with what we think we should be doing, or causing alignment. I call them the echo moments that come back to us. And when you find somebody that's getting into alignment, whether they're having an anger emotion, or they're about to start crying because they're sorrowful, or they're excited and exuberant and happy, how do you temper all of that to say, okay, if this is coming up for you, then you're obviously getting close to something that is so personal to you that you're about to release?
I don't know that I try to temper it.
Hmm.
And I think that's part of where I'm able to make the most significant progress with my speakers, is that they feel tempered in every other area. If they feel that they need to be strong for their partner, they feel like they need to have it figured out for their team, they feel contained, in their emotion. And I think so much of what we do in crafting stories and in bringing those stories to the stage is an emotional process. It is a creative process. That my approach is not to temper, but it is to explore. And if they're willing, and I kind of set the tone early on in working with them, that almost, very similar to what you said before, is like, we can't tell those stories from our wounds. We must tell them from our scars. And I think this process unveils a lot of wounds that are still there. And that's very much part of the speaking process, is what is a future talk? What is a future story? Because some stories we're still in. And there's a time and place for bringing awareness to the real kind of current state of things, provided we can give value. And sometimes that value is not fully recognized or realized yet. And so that we put a pin in that story, not in understanding it, but in telling it. And it helps us to differentiate the ones that are ready to share, that are ready to take shape. And they're typically the ones, not that don't come with a lot of emotion, but that we've been able to make sense of the emotion and to harness it into something tangible. And that's, I think, where a lot of speakers fall short, is that we tell very impactful stories. We don't do the extra thinking and knowing what is the transferable value in this. And so how do we take this story and then take it one step further to make sure that people leave with something practical that could be integrated in their lives?
How have you found in doing this work, because I'm seeing a lot of parallels here. Mm-hmm. And I used temper because of that's what I see a lot in executives, mm-hmm. in tempering themselves or tempering others that are around them. And in having conversations, it's really about the release, right, and letting people, and kind of color outside the lines and really show up. We say authentic self, but I can show up as my creative being. Yeah. Because I'm in concert with what your values are. I'm in concert with what the organization is desiring to do. And I can add my level of tapestry to it. And have you seen with executives, them really kind of throwing that temperance away, even though we're talking about, not being able to lead from the wounds, but really leading from the scars?
I've seen a desire to. I think they're holding on to it for dear life, in my experience. But there is
that's a vulnerability, right? That's a huge vulnerability for folks because I need to be seen as. And I'm sorry I cut you off, so keep on going.
No, I'd love to follow that thought, because it's really it's a reflection of what I'm seeing as well. So continue, because I think we could build off that together.
Yeah, well, that was it. I mean, I think it's an executive not really wanting to go into a space of vulnerability, and I believe you can go too far, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about myself now. In I was trying to model something when I was an acting CEO
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have a lot of time because we're going to get another CEO in there. I did not want to. Let me be very clear. I did not want to be the CEO of the organization. But I was stepping in because we needed to really shore up and save this grant that was going on. And we lost, when I stepped in, I think 14 FTEs. So the workforce was down and I had what I had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just had to kind of shore up. I couldn't really release anybody else because we we're so thin, and I just needed those folks to do the work. So I was trying to show them through action my vulnerability of, hey, we're not going to get this all right all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But we do need to be focused in and moving in one direction. And I think some people saw that as, I won't call it a weakness, but like an opportunity for them to insert what they had been suppressed on,
Mm-hmm.
that they could, usurp. And I can see everything that's happening, but I also got to get this work done. So,
Right.
so I guess my thought around that is, when you're releasing people, from temperance into this place of vulnerability, getting them to see beyond their wounds and really helping the organization, but not going too far. I guess if you've seen it, like, what's the magic pill, if there is one?
So I don't know that there's a magic pill, but what I will always take into consideration is the culture of the organization, because I work with a lot of CEOs who feel either disconnected from the subcultures that have formed, or the impression of the team, or the realities that the people who are on the front lines or on the ground are facing. And there's not an unwillingness to be vulnerable, but the reality is, if they want to bring a level of transparency in their all hands presentation, for example, as much as I am in support of transparency, in fact, it's one of my core values, I will question, is your organization equipped to support this? Because you're going to open Pandora's box if we set the example that these are the types of conversations that we can and are ready to have if we are not equipped to support other people in also expressing these thoughts and emotions. Mm. And so I guess, although I have no interest in tempering their emotions, there is a level of discernment in recognizing, does the current state of the culture and organization support this message today? And if not, how can we better equip the team to be ready to receive this information and to allow you to feel comfortable in delivering it in a way that feels very authentic? And, I think there's a huge opportunity to, I think that this is a bigger question, but I see, a lot of fragmentation between CEOs and the HR team and the people on the ground. And they're speaking to what they believe their audience to be. And I would say no fault of their own, not that they're exempt from responsibility, but there's work to be done in understanding the readiness and the willingness of people to receive this message. And I think sometimes we miss the mark, and this is where vulnerability is misplaced, because we don't know who we're talking to. We don't truly understand the state of our audience. And I think having a better pulse on that would go a long way.
I love that. Vulnerability misplaced. Yeah, mm-hmm. That misplaced vulnerability.
Yeah.
Very much so. That was, it's a growth moment for me, for sure, and understand that. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. So, we talked, and we shared, broke bread together out in California. Had a great time just hanging out, and then we went to LA 28, and we had another panel discussion, and so it's just been wonderful getting to know you. And you've kind of heard me say and pontificate on my 3R model, my resilience model: reckoning, revision, renewal. And when you think about where you are right now, it could be anywhere in life. It doesn't have to be in storytelling or helping business. It could be personal, professional. In the reckoning, we realize that life won't go back to the way it used to be. In the revision, we're daring to cast a new vision. We've got to make a commitment to that vision. So we're kind of in that incubator space. And the renewal, we're embracing the possibility of what is coming next, and giving ourselves space and grace to grow because we would have made a commitment by that time. Where do you see yourself in that model?
The renewal.
The renewal. Very good. Okay. That was quick. That was done. All right.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a powerful speech for me, to be as an audience member of yours, and a great deal of reflection went into that question when you asked the audience. And then we had the group discussion, and we got to really play with it and rethink our answer. If there was, a change, then we had the ability to kind of say, you know what, upon further reflection or talking it through, in fact, I may be in a different stage, and it was the renewal all the way. And I've just been more in the renewal since Unite. And it's a scary place, John, because the reckoning is right around the corner.
That's right.
It's a scary place.
It's a scary place. It can be scary, but it's also a beautiful spot.
You're right. You're right. And I think that's been the biggest eye opener for me. In leaning into this fear of success. I have given too much weight to the scariness of the renewal and not enough to it gets to be beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because you're blossoming. It's coming up. You're learning something,
right?
And you can't go back. You'll have phantom pains to stuff, but you're moving forward in a new space now, and you can't go back to what it used to be. So I love that. So let's get up some rapid fire questions here. Yes, and I'm going to get us a little closer, get us up close and personal.
Up close and personal. Okay, I'm ready.
You ready? All right. What's one book from beside your own? You wrote your best-selling book that has profoundly influenced your approach to leadership.
Ooh, to leadership. I'm going to say Limitless by Jim Quick, and it's not a leadership book, but what it has done is allowed me to recognize that tapping into people's limitless potential is different from team member to team member, and they will require a different form of leadership from me to be their best selves.
Love it. Okay, you got an historical figure you can have dinner with, anybody, be living or not. Who would it be and why?
Historical figure. I'm just going to tell you the first person that comes to mind. And I don't think this is my truest and my heart of heart answers, but I could just hear my great grandma being like, choose Elvis. She was his biggest fan. So, I mean, that's the one that came to mind. I'd probably have dinner with Elvis for the sake of my great grandma.
Love it. And then what's a personal habit that you believe contributes most to your success?
Physical fitness.
Okay, physical fitness. Okay, great. I'm curious, why is that one, physical fitness? I know you get up and you go work out and things, but is that?
So I registered for an amateur bodybuilding show a couple of years ago, and I'm the kid who lied to get out of gym class. Okay, I've never been very athletic, so this was a leap for me, and it came after a time of feeling very, very disconnected with my body, with myself. And I had everything to prove and only myself to prove it to. So it was a very personal experience, and I loved it. And I tapped into a level of discipline and motivation and sense of community and untapped energy that I just didn't know I had in me. And what's been really cool post-competition is seeing how I can get that in micro doses, how that is accessible to me in every day, absent the competition, absent, the medal to win. And it has, my commitment to my physical well-being has cascaded and impacted every other area of my life. That's
beautiful. Would you please go work out for me today?
I already did, John. I already got it in. If it's not in the morning, it doesn't get done. So I'll get an extra spin class in for you today. How about that?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. How do people get a hold of you? What's the best way to get some of your availability to coach?
Yeah, thank you. So samanthakris.com will have the links to everything. I would say I'm most active on LinkedIn, so you can find me there as well, either through the guest form on my website or the DMs on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to see how I can help.
Fantastic. And you have a book that you wrote called Bossing Up, isn't that right? And
Yes,
that's one that's out there right now.
yeah.
Can they folks find it on your website, or how they get a hold of that?
Yeah, everywhere. My website, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Indigo if you're in Canada, all the places.
Fantastic. And then I think one more. You got another book that's coming up, and no title yet, but title to be determined.
Yes, sir.
And, on Reinvention that's coming up. What's that? What are you thinking about in Reinvention?
Oh, so this will be a whole other conversation, but I'll give a little bit of a teaser. You heard me talk about it at Unite just a little bit. There's this, if anyone who's willing to give me more than 4 minutes of their time will know that I'm obsessed with the concept of liminal space. And it is this transitionary space that we step into once we've left what was, but we've not yet arrived at what's next. And I think as leaders, as people, we are in this space a lot, kind of suspended between two realities of who we were and who we are becoming. And there's so much beauty in this space, much like the renewal phase. It can be inspiring and exciting and creative, and it can be isolating and scary and confusing. It is all things. And I think the book is really intended to help people not rush through this space. It's not about what happens once you're on the other side. It's about fully appreciating this transitionary space for what it is and recognizing the value that it holds in the process of becoming.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Samantha, Kris. We've been talking amazing conversation today. Is there any blind spot that I had that I left out that you wanted to, that's burning to get out of you right now?
No, I mean, I just want to talk to you all day, John. We just need multiple episodes. We've got lots to cover.
We can do multiple episodes. Absolutely. You're a delight to talk to. Everybody, once again, Samantha, Kris, and if you have liked this podcast for today, make sure that you're subscribed to it. Make sure you're sharing with other individuals, and make sure you're coming back. Put an alert on for yourself. Hit that notification bell. We'll be back with other guests on this Amputate to Elevate Success podcast, because this is the place where you get a chance to elevate your leadership, elevate your mindset, and the things that you do. So go forth and inspire your world, and we'll talk to you again a little bit later next week. Bye for all.